Today's one-day build is the helmet of that suit which began this shot. That orange pumpkin suit that the NASA astronauts wore on shuttle missions for decades is called the pumpkin suit, or more appropriately known as the ACES suit. That stands for Advanced Crew Escape Suit. And I am tackling its helmet today. This is a hard part to get right, but it's really important to me to get it right. So I bought a 3D model online and sent that model to the Broken Nerd, to Daryl Maloney, who then took it and prepped it and modified it and made it acceptable for 3D printing. Then I got the 3D print, all the different 3D printed parts from Daryl, and once I had those in hand, it was time to prime them. My method of filling in the gaps on a 3D print is usually to dump a whole can of filler primer on the thing at the end of the day. Then by the next morning, it's very sandable. Once properly primed, it was time to send it up to Shawn Thorsson, who gave it a beautiful, beautiful coat, a candy coat, if you will, of magnificent white. Look at this thing! Oh, this literally just arrived about 20 minutes ago. And honestly, there's something that you should know about a shiny paint job. It does what you call hides the crimes. The shininess, even if the finish isn't perfect, even if there are inconsistencies, and I can see a little orange peeling on this, totally doesn't matter, because from anything farther than about 2 inches, that shininess makes your eye go boop, manufactured product. It just sells, and that is a lovely, lovely thing. So before I get started in adding all the parts and visors and bits of mechanics that turn this into a helmet, I need to do some masking and painting and then some tape application. There's actually a couple of hours before I get to my first mechanical part. So here we go. Okay, so there's two aspects of this thing that I want to paint. One is the face ring, which is a kind of a blue-gray silicone look, and then there is the neck ring. Two separate paint jobs. The more difficult one is this part, so that's what I'm going to do first. I always start with the most difficult thing off the bat because, well, I like finishing with the easy stuff. I'm using here some pinstriping tape to do this delicate masking out here at the edge. And that is definitely a technique I learned at ILM. The pinstriping tape allows you to get into some very tight spaces. Ooh, I need a skewer stick, hold on. The edge of the tape, where it's touching your part, you always want to make sure it's really, really put down so it doesn't budge. You don't want paint to leak underneath it, because when it does, boy, that sucks. The other nice thing about the pinstriping tape is you can tape on a curve. Okay. Now I've got these long straightaways. I can take care of them with your basic masking tape. Masking often involves using a bunch of flat pieces of tape to create a curve. And in that regard, the more pieces of tape, the better. You don't want your curves, you don't want your masked curves to look faceted. That will give away the ghost, as it were. You might be wondering why I'm taping up the whole helmet if I'm only painting this part. That's because no matter how carefully you paint, you will have overspray. And when you have overspray, you got to clean that off, and it's a pain in the butt. So the best bet is just to cover the whole thing. That way you don't have to worry about overspray. Project like this, I'll often use physical printouts for reference. So for this, I printed out close-up physical aspects of the helmet. And this one's actually actual size. I'll be using this for a lot of the ear mechanics. But there, this color, that color right there, that semi-baby blue, that is this little silicone gasket. This is actually the seal that causes the airlock for the helmet so that the astronauts can breathe. In the real helmet, it's made of silicone. In mine, it's a 3D printed piece, but I gotta paint it and make it look like a piece of silicone. So let me get some paints. Do I have any? Ooh. That's not bad. I'm gonna use lacquer paints for this. They are Tamiya model lacquers. I love lacquer because you can mix it really thin. About the consistency of milk is the most ideal, and it dries very quickly. It's not legal in large amounts in the state of California. You have to buy it in these little model amounts. But this should be totally sufficient. Okay, I've got a white here. Is this? It looks like white. White, yeah. I have here a color which looks pretty close, but it's too dark. And you might think that you want to add white to the too dark to get it to brighten up, but no, you do not. You want to add the dark to the white. That's how that equation works. I learned this the hard way. When I was in the beginning of mixing paint colors, the mistake you make in mixing a paint color is continuing to add more and more pigment, and you end up with like a gallon of paint for one little thing you needed to spray. I did that a lot. All right, here we go. So I'm gonna, yeah, that ought to do. Let's see how that goes. That's not bad. That's not bad. A little bit darker. I'm feeling pretty good about that, but I want a little bit of extra kick of blue, I think. That's risky. Let's try just the tiniest bit, just the tiniest bit. Not much, just enough. Yeah, look at that. Not a hell of a lot. Yeah, just a little bit more. Now I worry, let's see here. That, damn, brother, look at that. That, I'm really pleased with that. So it's still too thick. Lacquer out of the can tends to be a little bit thick, so I'm gonna add some lacquer thinner to it. Oh, I don't need to mix up lacquer thinner. Dope. Right, so just, really what you want it to be is the consistency. You want it to feel like it's milk. That's still a little thick. There we go. I think I need a little more of the dark, just a tiny bit. It's important to remember that colors often dry a half a shade darker than they look when they're wet. Yeah, that's it. I killed that blue just a tiny bit. Okay. To the airbrush, boy wonder.
It's nice to get your practice in on the non-hero aspects of your prop. That way you don't screw it up.
That's why I love lacquer, because it's 8 minutes after I painted this and it's ready to unmask. Sir, I will unmask you. It's going to be demasculated. All dad jokes that scroll through here now. Have I analogized peeling off masking tape being like Christmas? I have. I'm sure I have. Yeah, that was awesome. I'm gonna let that set a little bit. Before, I wanna paint the neck ring next. But in order to do that, I have to tape over what I've just painted, and you know, it's not necessarily perfectly dry, and if it's not perfectly dry, then it could hurt me. So I'm gonna let it dry for another hour or so while I work on some of the mechanical pieces. And the first mechanical piece I need to worry about are the ears. These two pins describe the pivot point of all the mechanics for the visor, the smoke visor, and what's called the baler bar. That's the circular bar that comes around. So those ears, I'm gonna make them out of black Delrin, and they are going to be, if I'm not incorrect, 41/64. Let's see. Yeah. 41/64. That describes the tallest it's gonna be. Am I right about that? Let's see. That is 1.15. Let's say 1.25, which means 2.5 inches in clear plus 0.1, 2.6 inches. All right. I'm thinking through the order of operations of cutting two ears at once. You'll see what I mean. Little known fact, this is how they make Jack Sparrow's dreadlocks. That's not true at all. Nice, perfect. Good. Ooh, nice. Ah, yes. So now it's time to start fitting some of the pieces together. However, yeah, what are these pieces? Where did these come from? There's a lot of little mechanical chunks to this helmet. So earlier this week, I made some of the parts in advance simply because, well, I wanted this one-day build to take a day. We'll see if I yield that. Okay, but the next thing is this is the top capture, as it were, for the clear visor. That sits right here. And it sits inside this. I need to be able to drill a perfectly centered hole there. Man, that looks nice, doesn't it? Hey, look, I made a pair of Beats headphones. All right. Look, if you think it's bad to hear dad jokes, imagine having them scroll through your head all the time. It's awful in here. One down, one to go. There's this. That's the first one. These guys, right? On the outside edge there. Yep, okay. Now, when Daryl Maloney printed these helmets for me, he didn't just print the helmets, he also 3D printed the visors. Why would you 3D print a visor? You can't see through any 3D printing process. No, this is true. However, we needed to know the shape of the visor, since the visors of the Ace's helmet are not perfectly hemispherical. They are compound curves. So Daryl printed out the visors for me, and then Bill Duran took those 3D printed visors, smoothed them, and turned them into negative fiberglass molds, into which he pulled the visors, and I get to see them now for the first time. And I'm very excited about it. Oh. Go away. There we go. Oh, look at that. That is a very, very pretty thing. That is really nice. All right, let's see. He said there were two. There was a really good one and a mediocre one. Is that the mediocre one? It's hard to tell. Which is better? Looks like this one is a little bit better. And then there's these two. Oh, look at that. All right, that one's definitely my favorite there because it's darker. So here are they. Now, I need to trim this to itself. All right, yeah. So the operation that I'm performing right now is a very tricky one of figuring out the relationship between this headband bar and the visor. I got to get this relationship right because I need the visor to clear everything, which means when I put the headband in, I want it to come forward and up a little bit. And it looks like that's about where I'm at. The visor's touching all the way around. Okay, so that's my mark. Now, it's time to attach the headband and the thing that you raise this with. And I'm going to do that with some VHB. It's one of my favorite acronyms. It stands for Very High Bond. I have some really sticky double stick. Always good to start with the center first. Yep. And then work your way down. Oh, yeah. That is not going anywhere. All right, there we go. That's the back side. Ooh. What? Why are you separating there? There you go. Now you come along for the ride. Okay. Now that should join these two things in holy matrimony for a good portion of eternity. Yeah. Oh, I'm totally down with that. That's great. So then this visor gets trimmed to that curve and put in here, but that is an easy fitment. I'm not that concerned about it. So I'm going to let that one sit for a minute. I need to make a pair of tiny little washers that fit in here underneath that thing. Yeah. There we go. Here's the conundrum I have. I have to trim these ear posts down to a precise length, but I can't grab this by the lathe, so I have to make a tool to hold it, and that's what I've done with this. It's a piece of Delrin with the same size hole that this is a shaft, and then I've made a slice so this fits in here, and then I clamp this into the vise, boop, and make my cut. Now what I notice here is that there's a little R, and that's the right-hand side. So I want to put an R on mine too. Here we go. Is that the same size? It is, look at that. It's exactly the same size. Hey, look at that. There's a nice R, beauty. Okay, now I need an L. Same thing. Oh, you know what? I also want to figure out which is the R of these guys and label that. But first we'll do the L here. Great. All right, that is that's the difficult part of the mechanical work, mostly complete, except for some small details. And I'm very pleased with how that's all gone. Yeah. All right, I'm very pleased with this. It's time to do the last bit of painting and masking on this bottom part. That's the next step. All right, so here we go. So now I need to get the color of the neck ring right, and it's not a red or blue neck ring. It is actually sort of this very gunmetal gray. So I'm going to be experimenting with a couple of different paints to try and achieve this. I'm going to start with this piece of plastic to just get my technique down, and then I'm going to try it on the helmet.
That's terrible. That doesn't, no, won't do it. All right. I think I've learned enough to get what I need out of this. And it's going to be a mixture. Whew. It's going to be a mixture of a bunch of things. There's going to be a black primer. There's going to be some chrome over that. There's going to be some clear blue spray over that. It's a lot of work, but here we go. Okay, while that's drying,
I have a couple of other parts to build. Here we go. Oh, we're making great strides here. Now it's time for me to start attaching the real hardware to this thing, and that's a big deal because the next step is the baler bar that joins the two ears. That's this big curved piece of aluminum, which I bent in my vise while Gunther was taking lunch. Ha! You didn't get to see me do it. And then the baler bar clips into a baler bar release, which is this. Now this is a beautiful part. This was gifted to me by my friend Chris Gilman, who runs Global Effects. They make spacesuits for all the movies you've ever seen. And Chris has some incredible resources, and he sent me a bunch of white metal parts, and I assembled them into this baler bar release. So now I'm going to put this in, and that will help me figure out the final dimensions of the baler bar so I can finally start attaching all the hardware to this puppy. Yeah. I do want to tell you that the only reason I have the courage to hand file this little machining operation is because of Chris over at ClickSpring. Thank you, Chris. Your videos have inspired me to put more use into my hand files. That is the first visor. That sits like that. Then these guys sit here and here. Then this is, yeah. That goes there. Yep, yeah. And this goes here. Yep, yeah. Then, just like every little part, except for the screws, has been hand built. Okay, so that goes in there. Yep. All right. Oh, we're short. Okay, cool. I gotta go to like 90. Yeah, there we go. Right, because my mark was here. Okay, so if what I want is that, and that's where it goes, right there, yeah? I think I've got all the persuasions correct. And it's still terrifying. Here we go. Okay. Yep, that's a 90. Second one, here we go. Circle shows me where the mark is. This is a moment of truth. I only have one piece of this nice aluminum. If I screw this up, I'm just like waiting a few days for another one. Carpe diem, here we go. All right. Wait, not quite. I am off by the tiniest little bit. We're going to try and unbend this. So the baler bar, after all that work, is a total wash. It's a complete failure. Yeah, I totally screwed it up. So I have to go get another piece of aluminum and start again. And since it's the end of the day, that means this one-day build is going to take longer than a day. I am a little frustrated with myself right now. But I'll be right as rain when we get back to this, and that's what we're going to do. Well, for me, it's going to be a couple of days, but for you, it's going to be like... And we're back. It's another day, the second day of our one-day build. And in the middle of the night, last night, I figured out what was wrong with my baler bar for my ACES helmet. I figured out what I screwed up. Now, if you remember, because it was only a couple minutes ago in the video, I used this piece of sacrificial aluminum, which is the same diameter as this aluminum, 5/16 of an inch in diameter. I used it to make my reference marks to figure out where I needed to align my tubing bender, this guy here, in order to achieve a right angle that went where I needed it to go. Now that is sound engineering practice, to work with a frangible piece just to make sure your marks are correct. But where I screwed up was that this is not the same aluminum as this. This is a different alloy that's springier, and I bought it specifically because with this baler bar you have to thin out this part, and when I thought about that, I was like, oh, I want a stronger piece of aluminum. None of that matters. What matters is I was doing a bend test on one type of aluminum alloy and then trying to execute that bend on a different alloy, and it behaves differently unless the bend ended up in a different place. Whew. But that's what our past is like. It's strewn with the detritus of our failures and hopeful successes. So now I have some more hardware store aluminum. I have my bending template, which I'm going to redo, and hopefully we will get this baler bar working. Here we go. I have a guide this time. I had a baler bar that I didn't use as reference, but now I'm going to. This is from a different helmet that I built. But when I line it up with this guy, it looks like it's almost the perfect size. Now, I rolled this on my ring roller. Unfortunately, 1/4-inch material is the biggest material I can run on my ring roll. This 5/16 won't fit, so I'm going to need to hand bend this. However, now I have this as a roll guide, so I'm going to use it to make sure I'm hitting the correct mark. So let's make a mark. Bending like this is it's tricky. It just takes perseverance is really what it takes. You got to go slowly and you got to make sure your actions are really equivalent. So I've got a straight piece of aluminum bar here. I've got 3 screw-up bars. I've got 4 chances to get this right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go starting to add a bend that tries to be even. I don't want the bend to be faceted. I wanted it to be smooth. I want it to be smooth. So I'm going to start moving across this bar. These are rough outer edge marks of the corners. I'll be able to adjust that if I got it slightly wrong. But so here we go. We're just going to go about every 1/2 inch, a little bit of a bend. Yeah, so not quite. Yeah, see, yeah, it's not bad. So then I start comparing it to my outline, and I can see that it's way off, but I'm just going to continue this curve around. Again, reference marks like center marks become really, really useful for stuff like this. Your eye just isn't good enough at sussing out the consistencies and inconsistencies, and you shouldn't be trusting your eye to do it. Marks on paper are just going to be better. Yep. And starting your bend from as far away as you can, which means like not bending from here, but bending from out here, means that I'm also averaging some bending across the length of the wire. That is looking really, really good. Okay, so right there. You can see I've got this side really much more even. So I'm just going to continue. Now that I've got that, I'm going to start working on this side here. Let's get that out. Yep, still there. So now you've got a, wow, you've really, whoa, that is a tough little move there. There we go. That's what I wanted. Let's get the other one going. Yeah, cool. That's it. There we go. Okay, so I am pleased with where that is. And now it's time for me to figure out where these bends need to be. So if I want the bend to be ever so slightly out there, I want it to be comme ça and comme ça. All right, ladies and germs, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's pretty darn good. Excellent. All right, so now we'll do the other one. Which will go like this. Now I feel like I've got a handle on this. I'm very, very happy. Here we go. Oh, God, that's so satisfying. Okay, so I'm cambered in there like that. You can see that, but we can take care of that with just a simple bend. And that is that, and that is that. It looks like I'm in the room. We're in the room. Well, it's nice to be back in the room. Okay. Here comes a test fit. So, in the real helmet, this piece is not raw aluminum. It's anodized. It's anodized gray, which is, you can anodize aluminum in any color you want, and if you don't use the color, it comes out as a slightly darker gray. I have a spray that looks just like gray anodized aluminum. So I'm going to, now that I've got this, I'm going to glue it in here and here, then I'm going to pull off the ears, hit the whole thing with some steel wool, and then bring it all home with the anodized spray. That should take care of the baler bar. And then, wow, we are almost home. Here we go. Nice, there we go. Look at that. So remember how I said I had this anodizing paint? It's made by Duplicolor and it's called Metal Cast, anodized coating. And this is meant for like car engine modders. I find it's really nice. This is a clear red lacquer. They make it in blue as well, that one. And they make this gray one, which I feel like looks really, really trick and ties a lot of stuff together. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this stuff.
Woo! Baler bar.
I have defeated thy baler bar dragon. Now, let's get that second smoke visor on. Okay, second smoke visor goes on. First one went on beautifully. I'm really pleased with how that's going. It could use a little more pressure, however, that I can adjust. So the smoke visor attaches to this blue piece, this blue anodized piece, and I've already trimmed the top and the bottom so they're really nice and straight. So now it's just for me to trim that little bit off. So here we go. Oh yeah, I am pleased. That's great. Okay, so. Beauty. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the bottom. So I'm gonna mark that with tape so that I don't forget. There's one other thing I think I'd like to do, and I should have done it earlier, but this piece on the real helmet has a yellow cast to it, so I'm going to experiment with a little bit of spray lacquer on that with a tiny bit of yellow tint in it. Okay, so I've got here some nice guitar lacquer. Again, I love the lacquers because they go on fast, they dry quickly, they flash off. That's still too much. Is that too? No, that'll be fine. That's just a little bit. Got to thin it out with lacquer thinner until it's about the consistency of milk. Not quite. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow dye. And what I'm looking for here is a clear yellow. And it looks like I got it. So, that's great. That's just what I was hoping for. See how that looks like? See how that looks like sun damage? That's fantastic. That's just what I wanted. Okay. So, yeah, we're really pleased with that. Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, look at that. It looks ancient. Oh, that is so awesome. I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and I haven't ever tried clear lacquer washes as a regular part of my painting repertoire. So I wasn't sure how it was going to take. And I have to say, as far as like sun bleached, like cool damage looks, that's awesome. I'm going to hit this a little bit. Yeah. We're just gonna add a little bit of yellowing. Like, yeah, that's older than you think. I am psyched. Okay, so.
Yeah, see that? This is why I love lacquers. It's already set and I can handle it and I can put my hands all over it. Oh, it's great. Again, if you haven't watched Bill Duran's video about making these visors, you should go watch it because there's a lot of really good information in that video. Bill did a great job with these. And visors are, in the making of helmets, visors are a pain in the ass. And we're all looking for better solutions wherever we can find them. Okay, so look at that. That's great. That's just what I wanted it to be. Just a little bit of a sickly yellow sitting on there. Awesome. Yes, I do. Great. Okay, so that goes there. Yep. Ladies and germs, it's working. All right, here we go. Let's get this guy. Okay, so there is the visor. One of the things I like about this construction is that as I keep going and like I've painted some parts to be anodized blue, as I keep messing with them, they get scratch marks on them, and frankly, that helps. That makes it look more genuine. Makes it look more like it's undergone a lot of tests in the neutral buoyancy lab, etc. Oh, there we go. Baler bar comes in and locks. Yes. Oh, I gotta get this off. There we go. The clear visor. Yep. Clear visor operates and is nice and stiff, and so is the smoke visor. Okay, dudes. We have 2 more details and some tape. Here come the 2 details. And this one is the anti-suffocation valve. I'm really glad there's one of those. And that goes in here and connects up to the middle. This gets, does it? Yep, cool. There we go. So when you have two holes to align, get one close, then put in your alignment pin, and that's when you get the other. If you try and do both at the same time, I can tell you from experience, you never will. It will never work the way you think it's going to work. But as long as the alignment pin's holding this in, I can't really screw it up. Incompetence will always find a way. I'm not saying that because I screwed it up. I'm actually saying that just because, well, it's a corollary to Murphy's Law that it is impossible to make anything foolproof because fools are so ingenious. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. Ladies and germs. Yep, I'm very pleased with that. Now, that is 90% of the helmet is done. The last thing we have to do is add on the reflective tape. Lesser known detail of the space shuttle helmets is that they had highly retro reflective tape on the back because everything about the shuttle aces suits and their predecessors, the launch and escape suit, was about being able to find the astronauts, was about rescue. So they had the bright orange suits so they were easy to see. And on the helmets, they had reflective tape. And I'm about to add that. I found the exact stuff. It's mostly perfect. This is going to be kind of a little bit of detail work. I don't usually like to save high precision detail work for the last part of a project. I usually like to finish on an easier note, but such as it is, that's where we are. One of the difficulties about the tape I found is that it has these markings on it, and those aren't markings that I want to be on there, so I have to effectively eliminate them, which is a pain. So I have to cut around them to get this tape on here. So the way I'm doing this, the difficulty with laying this tape over the compound curve of the helmet is that I have to center the bias of the tape. If I center it to one side, it'll buckle on that side. So in order to make sure I'm getting each piece of tape exactly the right size, I'm using this 1-inch green masking tape as my template. So I'm cutting each piece of green tape to the exact size I need. So here is one piece. Actually, I don't need that. So I'll get rid of that. So here comes one template piece, like that. And it has both a bowed edge and a straight edge. So I line it up here on my tape on the straight edge, like this, cut it out. Cut it out. And again, I'm not being super exact at the ends because I will fix those in a minute. But there we go. So peel off the template, peel off the sticky protective backing, lay it down EC, like this, and it's beautiful. Okay, now the last piece of tape coming up. Woohoo! Here it is. There is my template coming up. Going down onto the tape. All right, so get rid of the tape. Get rid of the sticky backing. And lay it right down here. You'll notice that my line here up the center isn't perfectly symmetrical, and that's by design, because what I'm now going to do is lay in a piece of tape across that line, and this will be my template for cutting these guys. So that means that I'm gonna sit here like this, up the middle, using the green tape as a guide. This is nerve-wracking work, and it takes a steady hand. I don't want to have to go over this cut. So yes, I'm scoring right into the paint job of my helmet, but said paint job is getting covered over. So then I take another piece of tape and I'll use that with which to cut out the reflective middle piece. This is going to be, again, more painstaking. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I'm very pleased with that. Okay. For mission critical cuts, always replace your blade. It can never be a bad thing. All right, here we go. Coming in like that, yep. Right now, this is the head pad. This sits in here just like that. Maggie Heeman, my sewist who put together the orange oversuit. And then in the back of your neck goes this little beta cloth pad. And you know, I have a long-standing friendship with Ryan Nagata, spacesuit constructor par excellence, and he had some actual brown beta cloth. Doesn't smell like anything, but it is the real stuff. And he lent me just enough to make a couple of neck pads. And here goes one of them in here, like that. Oh, and then we're gonna do Savage NASA logo in here. Right there. And one last thing. Goes right about there. This is the last detail. They actually put little Velcro markers on the suits, the helmets, and the gloves when they're dressing the astronauts, so I'm assuming so they know who is who and which goes where. But ladies and gentlemen, this is my Aces helmet. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is great. All right, here we go. Oh my goodness, it works beautifully. I am super Super psyched. Oh, wow. I'm going to take a second to thank my collaborators. Darryl Maloney first for printing the full-size helmet. Bill Duran for pulling the visor. Chris Gilman of Global Effects, who gave me the beautiful baler bar quick release. And finally, Maggie Heeman, the seamster for the orange part of my oversuits, who made the head pad and the neck pad. And to Ryan Nagata for supplying the beta cloth. This was absolutely, in every way, a team effort. And now I'm going to go to my happy place. Oh, it's nice and quiet in here.